So welcome everyone. You should be seeing on your screen the Market Stats portal, which is your entry to Domus Analytics, and we'll be going over all of this today. Really excited to show you everything. This is our newest version, so if you are new to Domus, then welcome. And if you've seen and used our products before, I hope you're really excited about all of the new stuff in this release because it is a big change. There's a lot of fun stuff here. I don't have a picture right here with me, but you will access this portal page from your SSO dashboard. We are a tile down near the bottom, and it'll say Domus Analytics on it, I believe, and it has our three little houses of their logo. So when you click on that from whichever association you are from, you should get the portal that is branded to your association. And we've got 4 different dashboards to go over here today. Now, you may recall for those people who've used it before that we used to have 5. That's the weekly dashboard that is missing because we've integrated that. So that's a nice big change for you. Should simplify things. Now, I usually do these training sessions starting from the left at the infographic and work our way across because this is the simplest dashboard and we just get a little more complex each time. But this time we're going to mix it up a little bit. I'm going to go right to the Market Insights dashboard because this is the one with the most changes. And this is the tab up on the top there in the middle, Market Insights. So we're just going to click on that and get started. Now, as a reminder, these all are online, so this will be dependent on the internet connection when you log in. If you're out somewhere a little bit remote with your clients and wanting to show them some data, it may take a moment to load, so just keep that in mind. We do also still update this data each night, so you will get everything fresh the next morning, but the first thing you may notice here is that we are looking at April stats. So unless there was data entered last night that closed in April and wasn't put in here, you won't see much changing after, call it the first week-ish or so of the month is when we see these stabilize. So this is the Market Insights member dashboard, and this is the one for you guys specifically. It has the most functionality, it has the most filters and things to do here, but all the other dashboards will operationally be the same. So when I say up at the top, there's an upside down triangle, and that's a filter that you can click on and interact with. That applies to every dashboard. So this you can click on, and you can choose which month you want to review on the dashboard. So that gives you a lot of flexibility. You don't have to worry about printing and saving everything so that you always have that. You can always go back and see. And the benefit of going back rather than printing these out is that you will always, again, have the most updated data. Now, right over to the right here, I have the April 2024 month, which is what we are comparing to, but you are no longer limited to comparing just month over month or year over year. You can now choose whatever time period you want to compare this to. So the biggest use case I see on this is maybe you had a client who bought their home back in August of 2022, and they want to know what their appreciation has been. So I just clicked on that filter and changed it. And now I can see since August of 22, the median sales price is up just over 9%. I'm sure you have other cases that you might like to change these time periods. And now we've given you the flexibility to do just that. So I'll just go back to my year over year because I like to be consistent that way as we go through everything. Now we've moved the metric bar from the middle on the prior version over here to the top side. In fact, we've moved everything on this dashboard up to the top in terms of interaction. Our other version had a lot of buttons down at the bottom and it had some on the side and you were kind of clicking all over the place. This moves all of your interaction right up to the top here. So it should streamline things for you a bit. And I'm just going to click on this metric list, and we have now grouped the metrics by subject area. They were loosely grouped by subject before, but now we've actually called out with a little divider between each grouping what they are. So we start with your sold metrics, and we go down, and we'll have your on-market metrics, and then contract metrics, etc. And this is a huge list of metrics on here. As far as I am aware, we have the most metrics of any stats product out there. And a lot of these will be familiar to you. Obviously, we all know what median sales price is. You have your closed sales. But the first one here I want to touch on is I have your square foot and your dollars per acre. Now, this used to be a single metric, and it would switch based on the property type that you chose. Now we have changed it, so we've split them out. So you have square foot here by itself, and then you have acreage by itself, but these will apply across any of the properties types for which we have that information. So an example we see sometimes is people would choose land and the listing would be in land, but it might have had a little cabin on it that actually did have square footage amounts. So now you will see these for any property type that has them. So if you just want, for example, single family on your square foot metric here, you would open your metric panel. This is the same as it was on the prior version. It's just a toggle switch here on the top right, and it opens that panel for you. And you would make sure that you have checked just the single family residences to just get square footage. Same thing with the acreage metric. If you wanted to see just acreage for land, then click on land. So just one little thing to keep in mind there. But now that I've got the metric panel open, I just want to talk through this real quick. We still have your regions here that will select down to the counties and the areas. You also have the zips here that you can choose, as well as your schools. And as a reminder, if you didn't already know this, this will display the data as it appears in the listings. So for example, if you were looking at Bradford County and one of these townships that appears in here is not actually in Bradford, that's because there is at least one listing where that township does exist in this county. So if that updates itself in the MLS, then we would get the update as well that next night. So just keep that in mind as you are going through these selections. And here's a difference from the other version. Now you have what's called, I don't actually even know what we call it, but rather than having to check all of the boxes here, you can see there's nothing checked on the region, but other counties is actually darker than the ones down below. So it is by default already selecting other counties, right? I have a metric here at the top that's showing me I am getting some data. So I'm really looking at Bradford, which is appearing in other counties, and I'm looking at all of the townships. I didn't have to check them. So if it's dark, it means it is selected. And if you wanted to narrow down, then you would just additionally select it here. So if I wanted to pick just the Bradford Township in Bradford, I would have to click on it. And now it's showing me just that data. Now the grayed out means that it not only is it not selected, but it is not available. So there is no data. In fact, I picked a very tiny one, so I have no listings here on this metric, but there is no data that would show in this Bradford Township in Broome County, for example. So grayed out just means it's not part of the data there. And let me go ahead and refresh this. We'll get back more data while we look at that. I just used my little refresh button here at the top. I could also use the refresh button on the browser if I wanted to reset the whole thing. So we'll just bring these guys back here and let's close this for a moment and go back and talk through some of the other metrics. So the next group here I want to touch on is this percent of list price received and percent from list price received. The originals are going to act the same way, but we'll click on the of list price received first because this is the one you'll be familiar with. This is the one we see the most and what we've had traditionally on all the dashboards. And this is just that list price and what did you get of it. It varies. I was going to say, no lower than about 90%. That's a little higher in your market. And it looks like it, went up to almost 109. But we usually are down in a small, tenths of a percentage change each month. And the issue with this metric is that sometimes your clients, as you know, don't really understand what this metric is trying to communicate. And you're telling them, well, 105% or 97% of the list price is what we expect to get. And it just doesn't really sit well with some people. So what we did is that we just switched it around to call it from list price received. And as I click on this, take a look at the chart and just watch that line and what happens. And what you'll see is that the line didn't actually move. The only thing that changed on this chart was my axis here on the side. And now I'm talking about it just in smaller percentage numbers. And that's literally so you can just say to your client, Well, we're looking at, on average, people are getting 5% more than their list price. And that's just a little easier for some people to absorb. It's the same metric, it's the same calculation, and it just is going to depend on what you are more comfortable communicating, what your client understands better. There's no right or wrong here. Pick whichever one you like better. That's what that metric is, and it's the same for the original price. Then you've got your percent closed above the list price, pretty self-explanatory, your cash sales. Talk about days on market for a minute, because there's several different versions of days on market. So this one is the days on market closed. And what this is the field of days on market within your MLS, and we are reporting it in the closed month. Because if you are comparing against the MLS directly, as we know people do, this should be the number that matches that, because they report that in that time period. But the interesting thing about days on market is that in your case, that field in the MLS is actually calculating the days between the list date, you can see my definition here at the top, and the contract date. So you don't have to wait to report it until the close month, because you know about it in that contract month. So what we have down here on the list, there we go, days on market pending under my contract metrics, we are actually showing you that same data, but in that contract month. So what you are seeing here is we know the data earlier, so we're showing it to you earlier, and it's actually giving you more information, because when you reported it in the closed month there, this number was 10. And when we see it in that contract month, it is 8. So that is telling you that it is speeding up. The market is moving faster, and there's less days on market. So we have the information. We want to share it with you. Some people prefer still to report it in the close month, and that's fine. But you now have that option of reporting that days to contract if you prefer that name. Some people call it that. So that's what that is, and that's where that is. And we have both here for you. Going back up, we've added days in escrow on here. Not an economic indicator, but you may have a client who's asking you how long they should stay in escrow, and what is everybody else doing, right? They want that information to know how long they should do, or how long it's typically taking. So that's here now. It's really just that number of days from that contract date until the closing date. And then we have one that I like to call on here, it's list to close days. But when I think about it, I think of it as the when am I going to get my money metric? Because when your seller asks you how long it's going to take to sell their house, how many days am I going to be on the market? What they are really asking is, when am I getting the check? When can I go out and buy another house? My parents are actually selling their house right now, and they're trying to buy one in a different town, and they're trying to time it, because my dad doesn't want to do a bridge loan. He's like, well, how long is it going to take? When am I going to get my money? So this is what that metric is. And it is just a straight date calculation from that list date to that close date. So that is there for you now as well. And now we get to a fun one. So we have a mortgage payment on here for you. We know the closed price of these homes, and we now bring in mortgage rate data from the Fed, so we can calculate an estimated mortgage payment for you. And I want to draw your attention, right above this chart, there's a little toggle switch next to my filter toggle switch that says show mortgage rate. And when I click on that little guy, it's going to bring in that actual mortgage rate for me. Now, the Fed data comes out every Thursday night. So we bring it in and we aggregate it up to get those monthly numbers for you. And you can see exactly how that rate has impacted the mortgage and the payments. A lot of people and groups get wrapped up around home affordability, and they want to know that in relation to the median salary that people are making. And they talk about, salary and rates are adjusting at different times, but the salaries have far less impact on those payments than the mortgage rate itself. And you can see that so obviously here. It is crazy. This chart is actually, this line is actually available to put on any of these line charts. So I can take it off here. There we go. And if you wanted to see it by itself, it is down on the bottom here as its own chart. So maybe you're doing a pitch prezo and you want to put that in there as its own chart, you can do that as well. So we have that for you. But that's a really fun one. So we've got the payment. You can go over and play with it and see on the median. Yeah, let's do that one. There's the median sales price. And I can add it on here. And we can see that mortgage rate and how that's impacted the sales price as well. I also have that I didn't mention before, this straight line down here that is the median price trend. If I have any appraisers in the room today, we were made aware earlier this year about some new requirements from Freddie and Fannie. And one of the things you need is the trend on that median sales price. So we added that. So that's what that line is there for you. Didn't mention that before. I apologize. So I did have a question handed over to me from Ed. Is AUC active or pending? So active under contract, we usually lump that in with the active because it is active, even though it is under contract. I will take a note to validate that in your instance and get that info back to Jane and the MLS when we send our video over to confirm, because I need to look in the database just to make sure. We've had a couple of groups lately that have said, no, AUC needs to be pending. So I will find out for certain and let you know. And there we go. We'll hide that mortgage rate and let's go back to our metrics because there's so many metrics. Median living area, that's a fun one. Somebody suggested it and my initial thought was, well, that doesn't sound like that interesting of a metric. But then we put it on here and it does actually tell a story. So why not? We're in the business of giving you lots of information and we have the data to do it. So I can see here that, homes back a few years ago, they were much bigger, the ones that we're selling, and now we've dipped back down. So kind of some fun stuff here. So that's what that one is. Then we go into some of our on-market metrics, new listings, distressed. It'll be interesting to see if that comes back and tips up in the future. We already talked about our days on market. My new pending sales are just those newly under contract ones. I'd just like to let you know that this is not things that are currently pending. This is just going to be the new pendings per month. So very cyclical, much like the closed sales is as well. And then we get down to our active ones. So a few things going on over here. The active inventory, I love to show this one because the MLSs have a hard time calculating this. They're great at telling you what's the active inventory today. Right now, when I'm looking in the MLS, what is it? But it's hard to go back in time. And if you maybe are working with a first-time home buyer and are trying to tell them a story, I'm going to open my filter panel here. Let's drag our price range filter down to, why don't we call that person about 300 and see if I guessed right here. Now you can say, okay, first-time home buyer for, we'll just pick on Syracuse just to mix it up a little bit. And there we go. How about Madison? So now I've got my analysis here that I have said I got a first-time home buyer wanting to buy in Madison, and they're complaining that I'm not showing them enough homes, but I can say, hey, many years ago, you had hundreds of options. Now there are 35 that were active at the end of April. And that's April. So gosh, this is almost the end of May. So there are not as many options, right? You can use the metrics to help tell the story for you. You're not the bad guy. It's the market that's not working out for these folks. So now you have information to show and tell that story rather than just saying, well, there's only 35. You can say this is a trend and here's what's been going on. So really fun having the ability to do that. But we can also show you the pending inventory now at the bottom here. This is going to be those properties that are still in pending and have been over time. So you can see there's still a bunch. I remember I was chatting with a realtor friend of mine, and she said she sells houses all the time. Some of them even actually go to closing. And she was referring to the number of times most houses get contracts that fall out. So there's a lot of pending inventory that folks really do consider active because it ain't done till it's done, right? And you can see there's a lot more pending inventory in that price bucket that we're looking at than active. So then on here, we have a couple of them. Let's talk about the supply of inventory and absorption rate. Now, this was previously called month supply of inventory, but we changed it because we actually show it to you not only on the month, but also on the weekly. And that's what I said earlier. We got rid of that weekly dashboard. We've now integrated it. So right here underneath that metric, there's this little drop down that says monthly. I can actually go to weekly, quarterly, and my yearlies. Those we still had, and we brought them here as well. But if I want to look at the weekly inventory, wow, there we go. Calculating. It's still not in that balanced market range of what NAR wants to see, but this is that month supply when you are looking at monthly, and we just changed that name there. But I'm going to go back to monthly here just to talk about the next metric on this list, and that's right below it, and it's the absorption rate. And let's go ahead and add in more of our data again. We'll refresh that. So the absorption rate, we had a question in another market, and somebody said, well, yes, I know month supply is how many months do we have. Looks like I'm pressing too many buttons all at once. So I'm going to divert and just say this would be an opportunity that you might say, wow, that doesn't look right. There's some things going on. So I think I'm going to refresh the browser. See, look at that. I threatened to refresh it, and now it's almost starting to pull it up for me. All right, we'll refresh anyway. So I'm refreshing the browser. I just said, you know what? It's looking weird to me. So I'm just going to start over. And we just get that back to where we were. You can't break anything. Nothing that we do is writing back to the MLS or changing any of the data, because this is just pulling from our copy of that MLS data. So you just refresh it and we get back to where we were. So absorption rate, we had somebody say, yes, I understand month supply is the months that it would take to sell through the current inventory at the current sales rate. But I like to, talk about this as absorption rate. It's just what I've always used. Some people call that odds to sell. And it really is just the same other side of the same coin. So if you are one of those people that like to talk about absorption rate, it's just telling, again, that same story in slightly different terms. I actually have a pretty good article about this on the real technical details. And right here at the top by my filter toggle is a little question mark. And when you press that, he used to be, I think, at the bottom of the page. Sorry, double click. Got to listen to my own instructions on there. And it's going to open up our support site. And you can just type in, if I put in months, it should bring up, absorption rate versus month supply. It's just a little article, goes into the nitty gritty. Some of these will be little videos. Some are little explanations like this, but you can dig in for more details on whether you might want to use absorption rate or month supply. Month supply is still the most common, but now you have the option and you can make that choice yourself. And then down on the bottom there, we just have our unsold and our mortgage rate that we already went over. So a ton of metrics on here. And let me go back to my closed sales because I like demonstrating the next things on counting metrics. And I want you to look right below the metric list here. We've been looking at a time series chart. And on the prior version, you also had a price distribution. When I open this filter, you still have your price distribution right there. And that's going to show you those closed sales across all of those price bands. And I like to use this one to demonstrate our drill through feature. So let's say you're looking at this chart and you were wondering, what are the homes that closed over $1 million? You can double click on the bar here. And it's kind of a quick double click. So if you don't get it on the first try, then do it again. But it should pop up this box. And I can expand that. And this is going to show you the listings that made up that calculation. So you don't need to trust that we gave you the right number. You can actually see what went into that. And you can scroll over. There's a lot more info in here that we have. And you can export this using the button at the bottom. It will export an Excel document to your downloads folder. And then you have it for reference, or maybe you want to send it out for a marketing newsletter. Hey, here's what closed in your area last month. But you have the ability to get into that data. And that drill through works on any of the bars. When you see a bar chart, it will work on any of the numbers up at the top. If you're over on a line chart here that we've been on, I can pick any one of these little points. As I hover my mouse over, it just shows me which one and double click, and it'll drill into that data. So that is a feature only available on the member facing dashboards like this one. It won't be on the public infographic because you don't want the public drilling through to all that data. So as long as I'm back here, let's go over a couple of things on this chart. As you notice, I'm moving my mouse and it hovers over and tells me the values on here. I also have this dashed line, this straight horizontal here across the chart, and that is the value of the current month that I'm looking at. So I don't even have to move my mouse to see that, for the most part, we've been higher in closed sales than we are right now. We dip below it a couple of times, but not very often. We've mostly sold more. So maybe sales actually are slowing down a little bit now. Who knows? But that just gives you that visual indicator of what's been going on in the market. Now, up at the top, we have a few icons that we have added on here. The first one is our download icon. Now, in the past, we have taught if you want to share this, maybe you want to do a screen capture and share, information on your socials, and you just do that screen capture with your Shift S and Windows button on a Windows computer. This will actually download the whole chart for you. So maybe you are going through and preparing your pitch prezo and you just want to get everything you need and then assemble it later. You can just click download and then that chart will be there where you're ready to put it in your presentation. Right next to it is a copy button. So that will just copy the whole chart and then you can go and paste it into wherever you might want to put it. Maybe you're making a newsletter for email distribution or, your socials. You can paste it right in there as well, but that'll copy that chart for you. And then we have the last button, which is a new one. This is our data download button. So I just showed you the drill through to the individual listings. This download button will actually download all of these calculated results for you. So this one is really for the super nerds in the room. If you are that person that has been maintaining a spreadsheet of your closed sales for the last many years or months that you just like to have your own reference, or maybe you develop your own charts for your branding. In any case, you now have the quick ability to download that. We would have people, move their mouse and hover and type and update that number and then hover to the next one and type it in their spreadsheet. You don't have to do that anymore. You can download that directly into an Excel document. So that's that one on that chart. And let's actually open the filter here because I want to show you a few things, but I need some more property types to do it. So we'll just grab condo townhouse and go back to where we were on our price distribution. And now on this one, I have this button right above. It says no breakout. So you just saw me add another property type, but I haven't told the chart that I want to see anything by that property type until I click on this little filter here. And the first one there is property type. I'm going to click on that. And now that's going to show me my breakouts for this price distribution. And this no breakout button actually also works on the line chart we were just on if you want to break things out that way. But we have a new fun chart that we added, and that's right under this price distribution one, and that's our comparison chart. So this one is now going to show me, I'm looking at monthly data, so for the month, and by my property types, it's comparing. And this chart will show things based on biggest value to smallest value. So I have the most single family residences and then condos are less. So that's why it's in this order. And if I go back here and pick by my region, now it's going to break it out by region and it's showing me where most of those closed sales were and over to the bottom. If you look at it, it's not alphabetized at all. And that was the question we got when we first released this. People were like, you're good at data and math, but is alphabets not your thing? And we were like, no, it's done that way on purpose. So don't worry about the numbers down here. We also have a fun one we added with number of bedrooms. That one really confused people because they're like, whoa, you really got this out of order. It's not meant to be in order on the bottom. It really orders it by the axis over here on the side. So that's what that is. If you were to click on the comparison chart and you did not pick a breakout, it would be the most interesting chart in the world. So when you see this, it's your little reminder of, oh, I need to tell the chart what I want to compare to. So I know you really love this one. You're probably going to put it in all your presentations and I'll take credit for it for you. So spend some time looking at all of these breakouts here. There's a ton of information here. Square foot range is really fun as well. And you can go through all of these breakouts. We've got one more here for you. It's our county map. And I have all of those counties selected. So you guys are really doing a good job at taking over the whole state. This is fun to see. We have a lot of clients that, just have one or two counties, and with the whole county map for each state, it's a little bit boring, but yours is much more interesting. So this is, not necessarily economic. It's a little bit of bling for you to be able to add to your prezos. We do have it color coded there by the different values, and you can zoom in and out using the buttons here, just like any other mapping software. So that is available for you. And it obviously will also honor any of the filters that you choose in there. So we've got that county map. And back to time series, we'll click over there. And I just wanted to mention a couple more things here on my filter panel. And that's down on the slider price ranges. If you didn't know already, we have the little plus signs over here on the side to indicate that there is data available above the values here on the top. We had to put a value, which is why we try to pick ones that are kind of at the high end. So I'll demonstrate this by dragging my handlebar all the way over to the top. And you can see I still have closed sales above that 1.5 million, but you're probably not spending a lot of time up here because there's only 5 listings, but it is available for you. And if for some reason when I drag it, it's working better now, but you might be on a browser or a smaller format screen that you can't drag that handlebar. If that is you, you can click anywhere on that line and it'll move it over for you and get out. Just a little operational detail. But these also work in the middle of anywhere, or you can go all the way to the end, down on your year built. If you need to look at things prior to 1950, you'll just drag that handle all the way over there to the bottom, and then you have that available for you. So tons of new stuff in here. I'm sure I missed a couple of things because we were going over so many, but just spend some time clicking around. Like I said, you can't break anything, and we'd love to hear how you are enjoying some of the new features and things we have on here. You can still print it. We've got the printer button on the top that again just invokes the printer function of whatever browser you are working on. So I've got mine. It was PDF before, but if I pick my actual printer, you can see it sizes down nicely to that 8.5 by 11. Unless you're on Safari, Safari does not listen to instructions very well, so you'll probably have to adjust some of those settings, usually just scaling down a little bit. I think last time I looked at it, it was about 86% usually takes care of it. So that is there. Now let's go over and quickly touch on the other 2 dashboards, which were the public ones. If I go back to the member hub there and show you, we were just looking at that market insights one, which is right here on number 3, but we have infographic and review to look at as well. Now those also got a little update with this version. Previously, this was just a monthly infographic, but we also added that time changing ability on this one as well. So you can see all of these little filters are the same with the little triangle. So, you can interact with them, and you can change that to weekly, quarterly, or your yearly or year to date. So whatever you are looking at, you now have that on here. You also have property types. We recently added the school filter on this one. I know you have a lot of school information on some of the websites, so that's there as well. And as you can see, it's including by default all of the property types, all of the counties, all the areas. So you just would go in and click on which ones you want to see to narrow that down. And you can still change the month that you are looking at. Now, we did do a small change on this one to take out a little bit of information. Previously, there was a button where you could compare month over month versus year over year. And we took that out. It is now just comparing to the prior month. And we very specifically did that because, as I said earlier, this is the most simple dashboard and it has the smallest amount of information in here. And we sort of move up in the information that we're providing and the complexity and whatnot. So we're trying to eliminate confusion, quite honestly, to say, well, if you just want that snippet, you just come here to Market Infographic. And that also allows you to keep yourself in the middle of that information flow and transaction with your clients and your prospects. Because if they look at this and they go, oh, wow, closed sales are up, almost 0.5% from last month. Well, I wonder what it was last year. let me go call my realtor Susie and ask her for that information. So it really is just giving that little bit to the public that they want and need, and then having them come to you for the rest. So that's the infographic change. And similarly, on our market review, which is that next step up in information, my favorite dashboard, honestly, because it is so much information in one small screen. We also added this one, that ability to change those time periods to the weekly, quarterly, yearly, whatnot. And you have those filters up there as well. And this one still gives you that month over month and that year over year, along with our spark line across the middle. And you can see this one, I've got the horizontal line here, just like I showed you on the market insights chart. It's actually been on this dashboard for quite a while, a number of years that line's been on there. And we just had the amazing idea with this latest release to actually bring that feature into market insights, because honestly, that's one of the reasons why this is one of my favorite dashboards, because that line really is that nice visual. So you have all of those filters there and the new time period change. And then that brings us to our last dashboard, which is our pricing insights. Now, this one is Ed's favorite dashboard, so I'm sure he'll type into the QA, yes, it is my favorite. This one, take off your stats hat for a few minutes and think more along the lines of a CMA or an AVM, because this is more akin to them. It's not meant to replace them. It's very much meant to work in conjunction with those. And this came out of working with a realtor in Boston who needed some help in pricing a property. So I'll just pick on my single family here. And why don't we go and grab, how about pick on Erie this time? And I will just grab all the areas here and we'll see how many we get. That's actually quite a bit. Down here on the bottom, I've got over 2,600 listings on there. So let's knock that out. And why don't I go grab Buffalo City? How big is that? Oh, that's actually a good number. I got lucky this time. So now I'm going to hide my filter panel here and we will talk about this dashboard. So this one is every single dot or triangle or diamond, square, whatever you prefer. These are all individual listings. And I can click on each one of these and it'll show me at the bottom the address there, and I can move around and see what those all are. And this chart is breaking them up into 4 quadrants. So down here at the bottom, I've got my low priced value listings. And these quadrants are defined by these black lines, which is the median sales price and the median dollar per square foot of closed listings. Okay, right here at the vertical line is that sales price, and the horizontal line is that sale dollar per square foot. And right where they intersect there is kind of the middle of this market. So everything in this bottom corner is lower than that sales price and lower than that dollar per square foot. So we are calling them low price value. That's where you're going to find your probably fixer-uppers, maybe your older, smaller houses. This is a great place for those first-time home buyers looking for a home, right? We got a bunch of these pending. So this is telling me orange is pending in this case. And I can click around and see what all these are. So that's what all of these properties are. Then I go up to the top quadrant, but still on the left. These are my low-priced luxury listings because they are still lower than the median sales price, but they are higher than the dollar per square foot. So we use dollar per square foot to talk about how luxurious is the home. Maybe these homes just had some new updates. Maybe they've got granite countertops throughout, and maybe they just did their landscaping out front. Whatever the case, they are selling at a higher dollar per square foot. Then we go over to our bottom quadrant on the right. This is what we are calling our high-priced value listings. So higher than the median sales price, but still lower than the median dollar per square foot, which makes them a value. So a lot of times we'll find down here the larger homes that tend to sell for lower per square foot, or some of the newer homes that just did the basics. They didn't do any of the upgrades with those. So those might be down here. And then our last quadrant is our high price luxury listings. So everything up in here, this top corner, is higher than the median sales price and higher than the median dollar per square foot. So if I move into this home that's almost $1.2 million, I expect that to pretty much be move-in ready. I don't want to have to be calling the contractors or having to get things fixed or, replant everything in the front yard. It should all be pretty good for that dollar and that price. And then how do you use this dashboard? So this one, let me knock out some of these big ones just to make it a little bit easier to see here. Well, how about, there we go. I want to spread this chart out so you can see what I'm doing. So now I can say, how do I use this? Well, if you are working with a seller and you're trying to figure out what they want to sell their home for, maybe they come in and they say, well, I'm looking at selling my house. I think I can get about $650 for it. That seems like pretty reasonable. And how big is the house is the next one you put in the box here. And the house, let's call it 1650 and see if I got that pretty right. That's pretty high. Let's actually make it a little bit bigger so I can describe this better. There we go. So when I put in my price and my square foot of this home, my blue lines popped up. And these blue lines right here where they intersect is where that dot would be for that property. I would see it right here and can say, all right, Mr. Seller, let's see who's around you. Well, the closest one is probably this guy down here at 629. And let's see who that is. That's Rachel Vincent Way. So let's talk about if your house is actually that much nicer than Rachel Vincent, or if maybe we need to talk about bringing your price down because the number one indicator, of days on market is going to be how close to that right price do you go out to, right? Nobody likes to deal with price drops all the time. You don't want the house to stay on the market for very long, and you don't want to have to keep dropping because people look at that. There was a house here in Reno. It was literally on the market for 7 years. I kid you not. And I watched that thing, go up and down and up and down and up and down, and they just couldn't figure out what to sell it for. Yes, it was a little bit of a weird house, but wow, 7 years. So you don't want to be that house. Get to that right price quicker. This is the tool to help you do that. And you can see with the gauges here, it's actually giving you the numbers of where you are in relation to the other homes in terms of that square footage. In this case, 100% of the listings are, less than your dollar per square foot that's proposed for this property. So tons of ways you can use this. Throw it on every open house that you do, right? Give this out to people. I like to say, use that market review dashboard and this. And that's all you need when you're doing an open house. You don't need to provide a 30-page high glossy booklet to everybody coming through that home because they want to see the home first and then the information comes after that. So this is great in that use case. This is great if you're working with some of your buyers and you want to take them around to all the open houses. And you can say, this is where this house sits. This other one we looked at is down here. And if you want to get a house that you can actually invest some money into and have potential for growth, maybe we want to be looking at some more houses down in the bottom quadrant to show you. So this is a great dashboard just to really have those discussions and get to that right pricing earlier. So love this one. It's a little bit harder to get used to. I will be the first to admit that. But once we, get people using it, we get the most comments about this one. Like, wow, I had no idea, all that information was there and it's been so helpful. So definitely get in on this one. And then the last one I want to mention, it's not a dashboard, but over here, we've got a tab for embed info. So if you want to embed any of this information on your website, you can do so with the infographic. And there's another one that I didn't show here. It's the snapshot. That's just going to be a line chart. It really is just one little line of code. So if you were to give this information to your web person and say, hey, I want to embed the infographic on SusieSellsRealEstate.com, then they can put that on there. And then you would have that infographic right on your website. And then your marketing message or your social media message can just drive clients and prospects to your site directly and say, hey, we've got an update on the market stats. Go check out the weekly stats again. There's a lot of movement here, or this area is showing interesting information, but you can put this right on your site. So definitely take advantage of that. If they need more information for that embedding, there actually is some info on our support site that you can get to with either that question mark that I showed you in Insights or through my little Hootie Owl over here. And Hootie Owl is also on that member hub page that you can get to that support site. Just gives a little more technical details, but it really is super easy, just one line of code. So with that, that's a lot of talking. I hope you found a couple of really cool things that you liked today. As I said, this is one of our biggest updates. It might actually be the biggest update we've ever done, because we just keep putting more and more information in there for you. So take a look, click around. If there are other things that you're looking at, say market insights, and you're like, I really wish I could do my breakouts by, I don't know, number of garage spaces, then get that info back to the MLS and tell them that that is critical for your business. And then they can work with us to bring things into the dashboards. I would say at least 30 to 40% of what you saw today, if not more, came directly out of feedback from agents and users out in the field saying, hey, this is what I need to do my job. Because that is ultimately the goal here, is to take some of the work off of your plate. You don't have to go out and collect all this info or be the guy that tracks it on your own spreadsheet. You can just come here, get the answer, and then move on to the other stuff that you have to do. Because especially going into summer, you guys are busy with so much stuff. You've got a mile wide of things that you have to know how to do, that we take care of doing this a foot deep for you, or a mile deep. Yeah, that's how it is. A mile wide and a foot deep. We do the opposite on this one for you to free you up for your other things. So I can give you back 10 minutes of your time today if you have other places to be. If you want to stick around and ask more questions, Ed and I will both stay here a bit longer. And we appreciate you spending your part of your afternoon with us. So have a great selling season and a happy Memorial Day weekend. Hopefully you get a little bit of time off. But this is the start of you guys not breathing until fall. So I feel for you. Thank you so much, everyone. Yeah. All right. I see a question came up here. Is it possible to have a legend as an option? The reason we don't have a legend is honestly because it would make the chart not really usable. We can't say only show a legend if you have two things. We have to show a legend for all things. So I like to demonstrate this by, if I were to pick on every single one of these counties and hide that filter, I can actually show my chart with every single one of these counties as a breakout. So that'll take a moment because there's a lot of counties on here. Some of the programs limit the number of things you can break out and put on your charts and on your legends. We don't limit it. So you can see here, it gets pretty messy. I don't see a lot of use cases for this, other than somebody once said, well, I like to see what the outliers are. I like to see that, wow, Warren, PA had a crazy median, back then. But because we do give you the ability to do this, it makes legends really unwieldy. Oh, and Ed says, switch that chart type to comparison. Here is a better use if you want to do all those counties. So now you can see that right here. Now this is going to show you those counties for the month, and it's a easier story to tell, right? And you don't need a legend on this because now we've got the counties down on the bottom. So there's different ways that you can look at it and manipulate the data, maybe rather than having the legend. I also honestly had people say, well, I'm printing out the chart anyway to bring to my person, and I just jot on, oh, this was, St. Lawrence County and this was Bradford. So you do a little bit on there, but unfortunately we can't put a legend on because it would just take up half the chart with all of those legends and keys on there. But great question. Thank you for asking. I see another one here on the infographic on social media. Yes, Ed said it's you don't want to embed the infographic on social media, but what I like to tell people is to embed it on your website and then just put in a post on your social saying, head over to my website, www.com, for the infographic, or take just a little picture of one of those and put that on there. But yes, you can definitely share. In fact, we do get the question about sharing in general. The infographic and the market review are considered public because they are smaller bits of info and don't have that drill through. And while this chart is considered a member-only tool, you can 100% print this out and bring it and share it with your clients. Or if you want to take a screen grab or use either the download or the image copy button on here and then post that picture to your socials, you can definitely share that way. We just like to make sure people aren't actually sharing out their access to their tools, which most people don't, but you'd be surprised at the occasional person that we get that, just wants to turn over the whole access to their clients. So we don't want you doing that, and you don't want you doing that, but you can definitely share with printing and those screen grabs on that information. Pricing insights, print only. No, I do not have one of those data download options on there. However, if you needed to, I'll just pick on one of these. There we go. Click, click, click. If you wanted to download all of the listings on this chart, down here at the bottom where it says selected listings, you can actually double click on that and it will open up that same drill through and you get to the listings on there. So you can see which ones were part of that comparison. And then you can actually print out the chart along with that and say, here's the list, here's the chart that goes with it. I don't actually know if our tool would work to do a printout of this chart, but that's a great idea. I will look into that. All right, looks like we're getting down on questions there. Yes, I love that. Pretend you're 7 and click on everything. You know what? Sometimes I have a margarita and then do some testing just to make sure that, it's as bulletproof as can be, or tequila proof in this case. So go have a drink on me and click away to your heart's content. All right, looks like we are getting to the end here. So I'm going to stop the recording and thank you again, everyone, for your time today.